Who doesn't love crunchy, chewy crumpets, toasted to perfection and full of holes to soak up any sweet or savoury flavour you stack on top? I'm going to use a crumpet to put together a tasty savoury breakfast made with some beautiful homemade bacon and a lovely poached egg straight from the chicken. You can't get much fresher than that. Don't have any crumpets on hand? Well, neither do I. That's fine, we'll make them. Like many things, they're surprisingly easy to do from scratch. Let's get adventurous. For the last couple of weeks, we've been babysitting some chickens for my in-laws. Meet Myrtle and Gertle. Or is it Gertle and Myrtle? I can't tell them apart. But anyway, for the time being, we have chickens. And they have been making an absolute mess of the backyard. They've scratched most of the dirt out of my flower beds, and just look at what they've done to my broccoli. Completely decimated. No, that's a bad chicken. Oh, I can't stay mad at you. Here, have some bugs. Anyway, right now it's late at night and I've got a bit of a hankering for a breakfast at night kind of thing. It feels like a long time since I've had a crumpet, so I think I'll whip one up. Does it seem like a silly idea to go to this much effort just to make one crumpet? I don't think so. I'm hungry, I feel like a crumpet, so why not make one? I'll include the measurements for this on screen, but I'll also include the measurements to make a batch of 6. This recipe actually works a lot better if you're making a batch. Scaling it all the way back just to make one means you've got to be really precise with your measurements, and it's really easy to get the ratios a bit off. For weighing the ingredients, we're going to need an accurate set of scales. Say hello, Mr. Scales. Hello. Then I'm going to measure out some plain all-purpose flour and set that aside, then measure out some warm water, and to that I'm adding a little bit of sugar and some yeast, then leaving that in a warm space to rehydrate the yeast and start it fermenting. I'm then adding some salt to my flour and then putting my rehydrated yeast mixture into the bowl with the other ingredients. You want to give this a really good mix to make sure everything's well combined, and then setting this aside in a warm place for 20 to 30 minutes until it's nice and foamy and you can see lots of bubbles. At this point, I'm going to add a little bit of baking powder and give it one last stir. To cook the crumpets, I'm adding a small amount of oil to a non-stick pan, which has been sitting over a medium-low heat. I'm spreading this around with a brush and using the same oil on the inside of a crumpet ring. If you don't have a crumpet ring, any kind of circular mold will do. An egg ring will work fine, they'll just be slightly smaller. You can go free-form and just pour the batter straight into the pan, but it spreads out a lot more and you end up with a much flatter crumpet, more like a crumpet pancake hybrid. Another option would be to use something like a small non-stick fry pan or a non-stick saucepan. This might give you a more crumpet-like result, but they are going to be much larger. Once everything seems hot, reduce the heat to low and pour in your batter. You need to cook these fairly low and slow because ideally you want the crumpet to cook all the way through from one side without the bottom burning. Putting a lid on the pan while it's cooking will help trap in some of the heat and steam and cook the crumpet all the way through, but for the purposes of getting good video, I've left this uncovered. You can flip it over and cook the other side as well, but I find that this squashes the top surface and closes a lot of the bubbles, so it's probably best avoided. It doesn't matter if it still looks a bit blonde on top, these are going to be popped into a toaster right before serving anyway, so they'll be nice and crisp and golden when they come out. These are great with butter and honey or jam and cream, but I really like them with savoury toppings. They're great with butter and Vegemite, but in this case, since I have ready access to such nice fresh eggs, I'm going to top it with a poached egg and a side of homemade bacon. If you're interested in making your own bacon, I'll pop a link in the description and at the end of this video to another video explaining how to do just that. And if you're finding this interesting or informative, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. It really helps a lot. One of the best things about making your own bacon is that you end up with a nice big solid chunk that you can cut however you like. In this instance, I'm going for some nice thick chunky slices. As my bacon's frying off in the pan, I'm going to poach my egg. Poaching eggs isn't something that I do a lot. I usually have them fried, so I'm hoping I get the timing just right. I want the whites nice and firm and hopefully a nice runny yolk that's going to spill out into all those lovely crumpet holes. When my water's simmering and my bacon's flipped, I'm going to pop the crumpet into the toaster for a nice final toasting and put my egg on to poach. Now everything's cooked and my crumpet has popped, it's time to plate it up. And I'm just dying to know if I've cooked this egg right. Fingers crossed, but first a sprinkle of fresh chives. And I think that looks pretty darn good. I'm thinking breakfast as a late night snack is something that I need to do more often. And now the moment of truth. Is that egg yolk nice and runny? The white's nicely set, but I really hope that yolk's not overdone. No, it's a bit over. Not by much, but it's not quite what I wanted. It's still a little bit oozy, so though it's not perfect, I'm pretty satisfied. And ultimately, this is a great combination of flavours and textures. The crumpet has a crunchy exterior and a chewy middle, nice solid egg whites and a fudgy egg yolk, and nice crispy meaty bacon. If you get a little bit of the egg, the crumpet and the bacon at the same time, the bacon's salty enough that it seasons everything beautifully in each mouthful. So next time you've got a craving for something and you don't happen to have it on hand, consider whether or not you can make it yourself. It's probably way easier than you think, and you'll probably have a lot of fun making it. Go on, get adventurous. And until next time, happy snacking.